Hey friends, Paul Gibbs with Just Got Music Ministries, using music and more to help you in your Christian walk. And in this video, Nate Miller is going to share his thoughts on creation, creativity, and our Creator. Coming up.
Hi friends, this is Nate Miller with Just Got Music Ministries, where we use music and more to help you in your Christian walk. Today I just kind of want to share some of my thoughts with you guys on the subject of creativity and where our creativity comes from and the inspiration behind it. And I want to start with a verse, two verses actually, from Genesis chapter 1. That's verses 26 and 27. And you're probably very familiar with them as a Christian. Basically, verse 26 says that God said, "Let us make man in our image." And verse 27 says, "So God created man in his own image, and he created him in the image of God. He created them male and female." Now, we can debate a lot of different ways what that means theologically, but I just want to talk about what that means for us in terms of creativity today. And this is by no means going to be exhaustive or totally comprehensive. This video is just to kind of like whet your appetite or get your minds thinking about creativity. And I want to offer you guys the opportunity as well to share your thoughts after the video. You know, share your comments below. What are your thoughts about creativity and inspiration? But taking that verse, those verses that we are created in the image of God, I want to look at God as a creator and think about how our creativity comes from the fact that we are created in his image. So if God's a creator and he's created us in his image, the notion or the creativity that we experience, that inspiration, comes from being like him. So the first thing that we see in the first chapter, and I'm limiting myself to the first chapter of Genesis for this, and the first thing that we see in Genesis 1 through the creation story is that God not only creates, but he steps back and evaluates his creativity, and then he makes a declaration about it. He says that it's good. And as you read through that chapter, 7 times God steps back and looks at his creation and says it is good. And it's on the 7th day, when after he creates mankind, both man and women, that he steps back and says it's very good. So when you think about this, it's kind of a little bit strange, actually. We believe in an all-powerful creator, so why would God create anything that's not good or perfect, but yet he steps back and takes a look at it and declares it as good? So I think there's something a little bit deeper here in terms of thinking about creativity as us being created in his image. And I want you to picture God as like this master artist or painter, if you will. And he's up close looking at his painting and these tiny, fine little brush strokes. And he puts the last brush stroke in, and he steps back and he takes a look at his creation, this painting, this wonderful, beautiful painting that he makes. And he looks at it, and a smile comes across his face, and he says, "This is good." And I think that's really what's going on here. God is actually stepping back. He's looking at what he just created, and it brings a smile to his face. He says it's good. And so I'm just thinking about that as artists. When we make a creation, whether it's a painting or, you know, a song or a poem or whatever it is, do we kind of step back and take a look at it and say, yeah, this is really good? And as artists in general, and especially as Christian artists, we probably shy away from that because it might be seen as being egotistical or prideful or maybe narcissistic. But if God can step back and look at his creation and say, wow, this is good, that it brings joy to his heart and it makes him smile, you know, why not us? Can't we create something that puts a smile on our face, especially if we know it's going to bless other people? So that's my first thought looking at the creation story and God as a creator. The second thing is that God gives life to his creation, or at the very least, he creates objects that have a life of their own. So of course, when we look at mankind, he creates man out of clay, out of dust, and he breathes life into it, and he gives life to man, that he's a living, breathing object, that he has a soul, the life that came straight from God. But even in like the vegetation and the animals, God created something that had life, that could move and breathe and on its own. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the next point that I have. But just thinking about giving life to your creations. Again, you're making a song, or you're doing a painting, or a poem, or a story, or whatever it is that you're channeling your creativity in. But thinking about like that life-giving property that God gives to his creations as you're creating these works of art. Are you pouring that life-giving part of yourself into that, so that when the people who enjoy your work, whether they're listening to a song or viewing a painting or hearing your poem, that's transferring to them, that they can feel that spirit of creativity or inspiration through your work of art. So that's another point that I see in the creation story, and God as a creator, that maybe is passed on to us as we are works of his creation. And the third one that I want to point out to you is that he blesses his creations. And there's a second part to that. He commands them to multiply. So that's kind of tied into the one I talked about before, where he gives them life. But the idea that God steps back and gives a blessing to his creation. Of course, the blessing in Genesis 1 is that he tells them to be fruitful and to multiply and to fill the earth. And to mankind, he gives them dominion over the earth. But the idea of blessing your creativity, blessing your creation, so that maybe in turn it's going to go forth and bless others who have the chance to experience it. It's a very interesting concept to me, and one that I want you guys to kind of dialogue on more. Like, leave your comments below, and what do you think about that, and what that means for for art and creativity. I have a really neat story that a friend of mine, who's also a phenomenal guitarist and musician and music producer, named Matt, he shared with me one time that whenever he restrings his guitar, he's taking off the old strings and he's winding each one of them up to before he puts on the new string. He kind of relayed to me one time that each of the old strings that he takes away, he thanks them before he throws them away. And that might sound kind of cute or cutesy or trite, or a little silly to you, but I just thought, wow, what a neat way to appreciate the privilege that we have as artists to make music or to create art. The fact that he thanks these strings for the service that they did for him, that he was able to use them to make music, to bless himself and others. So I just thought that was a neat story. It makes me think about it every time I change my strings, to be thankful that I have the opportunity as an artist, and that I was created in God's image with the notion of creativity to make beautiful works of art, to bless myself and bless others. And the last part of that is, of course, the fact that God commands them to multiply. So not only does he create like a self-standing work of art, whether it's an animal or a plant or a person, but he gives them the ability to create, to multiply. And this is, again, another interesting concept to me, something I'm still working through in my mind, what that means. But I kind of relate this to the story of the parable of the sower. You get to the last type of soil, which is good and fertile, and the seed, which is the word of God, is planted in it. And it says that the person with that type of soil brings forth 30-fold or 60-fold or 100-fold. And I've always found that parable interesting, because the person with the good soil of their heart or their mind brings forth, but there's a different level of productivity that they have. One only brings forth 30-fold, one 60-fold, and the other 100-fold. That idea of bringing forth 100-fold to me is very exciting and interesting. So I'm thinking about that in terms of art. How does our art, as we're creating our art, of course it blesses us, and we talked about that with Ron Druck. He said when he's writing and performing these songs, God is blessing him, But as he's performing them for other people, the blessing flows through that to them. They're being blessed by the story or the spirit behind the song. So thinking about that in terms of kind of paying it forward with your creations, whether it's a song or a piece of art or whatever it is, so that idea of multiplying the blessings with your work of art, so that other people experience that and that passes that on to them, and hopefully they bless other people in return. So again, these are just a couple of thoughts I had from Genesis chapter 1. God obviously is a creator, and because we're created in his image, he's passed that creativity on to us, and that idea really excites me. So I want to hear your guys' take on that. What does it mean to be an artist and a creator created in God's image? Those 3 points, like the fact that God creates and evaluates his work and he declares that it's good, that he gives life to his creations, and that he blesses them and asks them to multiply. So what are your thoughts? Leave your comments below. Would love to hear your thoughts on this and other thoughts that you guys have on creativity. And also want to ask you guys, if you like these videos, if they're a blessing to you, please consider subscribing, and also tell your friends about the Jescott55 YouTube channel. We'd love to pass this on to other people if you think it'll be helpful to them. And last of all, we want you guys to take care of yourself, take care of others, and may God bless you. Thanks, guys.